Hey guys, it's Matt from Pure MTG here. I've got a deck tech for Marneus Calgar. This is the commander that I chose for the Jake and Joel are Magic's Universes Beyond themed month. You get $200 this month, so you get double the budget of the normal decks that you can submit. And that allows for more shenanigans, more combos. Each week you get an extra $100 to add to your budget. And yeah, so let's get into it. This is a token-centric deck. You have Marneus as the commander. So for 5, he's a 3/5 double striker. You're mainly concerned about these two abilities here. So the first ability is whenever one or more tokens enters the battlefield under control, draw a card. And for 6 mana, you can create 2/2/2 white Astartes warrior creature tokens with vigilance. So you'll draw a card from that and create some dudes. It's pretty good. You have Elspeth. You're mainly using this to create tokens to draw cards. Yeah, 3/1/1 soldiers ain't bad. You can -3 to destroy all creatures with power 4 or greater. The majority of the creatures in the deck, tokens included, are below 4 power. So, you dodge the board wipe and then you kill everything else. And then if you do get to plus at 7 or higher, you can give your creatures +2/+2 in flying. Kaya Geist Hunter is mainly in here for the Anointed Procession ability. So until end of turn for -2, if one or more creatures would be created under your control, tokens, twice as many tokens are created instead. The other two abilities aren't really used that much. You'll use them just to get, you may be able to force some damage in. Death Touch on a double striker is pretty good, but the 1/1 counter can only go on target creature token. And then you can exile all cards from all graveyards and create 1/1 spirit tokens with flying for each card exiled this way. So if you do get this off, obviously it's going to be really good, but you're mainly just using it for this -2. Liliana Dreadhorde General, 6 mana for a 6 planeswalker. Whenever a creature you control dies, you draw a card. And you can +1 create a 2/2 zombie creature token. This allows you to draw a card with Marneus. And then -4, each player sacrifices 2 creatures. And then -9, each opponent chooses a permanent they control of each permanent type and sacrifices the rest. Yeah, so use this to draw cards. Use this to draw cards. And then if you need to have them sacrifice creatures, you can. You're going to be making more creatures than them, so hopefully. Yeah, pretty flexible general. Adeline Resplendent Cathar for just 3 mana. It's a star 4, but the moment it attacks it becomes a 4/4 vigilance. Its power and toughness equals the number of creatures you control, so bare minimum with nothing in the field the moment you attack it's a 4/4. Because whenever you attack, for each opponent, you create a 1/1 white human creature token that's tapped and attacking that player or planeswalker. So just a way to generate tokens, swing in, fairly large. It's herself, and combos well with our commander. Corpse Knight is one of the ways to win. If you don't want to do it through combat, you can play Corpse Knight, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life. So there's a plethora of ways to get infinite mana in this deck. So if you have your commander, you can go infinite mana, make a bunch of 2/2s, draw a bunch of cards, and then they lose life for each 2/2 that enters the battlefield, and then you win the game. Curiosity Crafter, just a way to get no maximum hand size. It's a flyer, and whenever a creature token you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So good card draw. Same thing with this, Afar, God of the Palace. At the beginning of each upkeep, if you had another creature enter the battlefield under control last turn, draw a card. So there are plenty of ways to make a token on each person's turn, so you'll be able to draw a bunch of cards and gain a bunch of value. Grim Hireling, 4 mana for a 3/2. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create 2 treasures. And you can pay a black and sacrifice X treasures. Target creature gets -X till end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. So it's a pretty good way to use your treasures as a kill spell if needed. Otherwise, you're just ramping. Notably with Marneus, because he has double strike, he'll hit, create 2 treasures, and then hit on the second hit, and then do another 2 treasures. Because it's each individual hit from combat. So if you have 5 creatures, you'll still only get 2 treasures, but if they have like double strike, you'll get 4 treasures total. Pretty good. Junkwinder, 7 mana for a 5/6, affinity for tokens, so fairly cheap most of the time. And it has whenever a token enters the battlefield under your control, tap target non-land permanent and opponent controls. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Pretty solid there. Way to lock it down. Keeper of the Accord, 4 mana for a 3/4. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, if that player has more creatures than you, you get a 1/1 white soldier token. And if they have more lands than you, you get to go get a plains put on the battlefield tapped. Just a way to kind of catch up if you fall behind in mana or creatures. Nadir Kraken is one of the strongest cards in this deck because with Marneus, it combos pretty well. So it's 3 mana for a 2/3. Whenever you draw a card, you may pay 1 colorless. If you do, you put a 1/1 counter on Nadir Kraken and create a tentacle that's a 1/1 blue creature token. Whenever you draw a card, you create a token, you pay the 1. Whenever you create the token, you draw a card from Marneus, so you can pay the 1 whenever you draw the card to create the token from Marneus, so you can pay the 1. You see, it's a never-ending loop. As long as you've got mana, you can do it. If you have infinite mana, you can draw your entire deck and get a ton of 1/1 tokens and make Nadir Kraken very large and do all kinds of great stuff. Ruthless Technomancer, 4 mana for a 2/4. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature you control. If you do, create a number of treasures equal to that creature's power. You can then pay 2 colorless and a black, sacrifice X artifacts. Return target creature card with power X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. X cannot be 0. This basically just allows you to reanimate any of the pieces that you need that died, any of the important creatures. Thealis, Reverent Medium, 5 mana for a 3/4. At the beginning of each end step, create X 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying, where X is the number of tokens you've created this turn. It kind of doubles the number of tokens you create, and plus they're 1/1 flyers, which is great. Tevet, Seller of Secrets. This is one of the ways to have infinite turns in this game, in this deck. It's 6 mana for a 6/6 flying ward 3, so it's got some protection, which is nice. Whenever it enters the battlefield or deals combat damage to a player, starting with you, each player votes for evidence or bribery. For each evidence vote, you investigate, which means you create a clue. For each bribery vote, you create a treasure token. While voting, you may vote in a digital time. So you're basically going to get 5 artifacts from this. I wonder if there's an artifact in the game that for blue and a black, you can sacrifice 5 artifacts, tap it, and take an extra turn. So with Tevet and that artifact called Time Sieve, you just get infinite turns. As long as you can hit somebody on the next turn, you just create 5 more. Doesn't matter what they vote. And you sacrifice those 5 artifacts, take an extra turn. And you just kind of repeat that, and you can't lose as long as they don't stop that kind of combo. Ultramarine Honor Guard. I love Squad. Squad is like a pretty cool mechanic. So it's 4 mana for a 2/2 with Squad 2. So as additional cost to cast this spell, you may pay 2 any number of times. When this creature enters the battlefield, you create that many tokens that are copies of it. And then this one has other creatures you control get +1/+1. So it's just a way to sink a lot of mana into endgame. If you have infinite mana, you can make as many of these as you want and have like your creatures be absolutely monstrous, and that's fun. This one's the same way. It's 4 mana for a 3/2 flyer, though. It also has Squad 2. And it has Suppressing Fire. When Vanguard Suppressor deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So even for 10 mana, you get 4 3/2 flyers that can hit a player and draw a card, or pump your dudes +4. It's pretty good. Because this is more CEDH light, you're going to want a lot of tutors. So Fabricate, search your library for an artifact card, reveal that, put it in your hand, shuffle. Raven form should be Resculpt, but I was too lazy to find my Resculpt, so just don't use this and use Resculpt. Vanquish the Horde, 8 mana, but this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield, and destroy all creatures. A lot of times it's going to be 2 mana to destroy all creatures. That's pretty good. We're a token deck. We should be able to rebuild faster than most decks. Also, because it's a CEDH light format, you're going to have a lot of counter spells that are cheap. Like an Offer You Can't Refuse, I feel like it's one of the best counter spells they've created in a very long time. It's just 1 blue instant counter target non-creature spell. Its controller creates 2 treasures. A lot of times those treasures don't mean anything because you're in a counter spell war and you're trying to win. So you just stop them from trying to stop you from stopping them. So counter spell, just a cheap counter spell, 2 mana, just counter target spell, simple. Deny the Witch, one of the new counter spells from the Warhammer decks. It's a little expensive at 4. It's probably not worth playing, but it's so fun. So for 4 mana, counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability, and its controller loses life equal to the number of creatures you control. It could just be a straight kill spell, countering whatever the person has, and then if you have a bunch of tokens or infinite tokens, they just die because they have, they're not gonna have that much life. So, it could be good, but it's a little expensive for at 4. You have to keep a lot open. Dovin's Veto, 2 mana for counter target non-creature spell, and it cannot be countered, so that's pretty good. Dramatic Reversal, this is mainly just in here for Icecrown Scepter combo, so you play Icecrown Scepter with Dramatic Reversal underneath it, and as long as you have mana rocks equal to, that create more mana than 2, you'll have infinite mana, so that's nice. Drawn on the Lock, 1 blue and a black, instant, choose 1. Counter target spell with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard, or destroy target creature with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in target controller's graveyard. It's a fairly cheap, flexible counter spell /kill spell. Most of the time, you'll be able to do whatever you want. Like as far as like they'll have enough cards in their graveyard to just be able to target whatever you want. Middle to late game, early game, it could be kind of bad. So I could see this being removed. Grand Crescendo. This is one of the ways to get indestructibility for your tokens and whatnot or creatures. Way to save your board. So for just 2 white, and you can pay 0 if you want. Create X 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. Creatures you control gain indestructible till end of turn. Pretty solid save there. Mystic Reflection is a very flexible card. You can use it on your own things. You can use it on somebody else's things. But yeah, choose target non-legendary creature. The next time one or more creatures or planeswalkers enter the battlefield this turn, they enter as copies of the chosen creature. So if somebody plays a Liliana Dreadhorde General, you can pay this for 2 mana, and you can make it come into battlefield as a 1/1 soldier. Same thing with their planeswalker. It can come into the battlefield as the copy of the chosen creature, meaning they can play their commander, and you can just make it come into battlefield as a 1/1 soldier. And if that soldier never dies, or they have no way to get rid of it, they can never play their commander. It doesn't have any of their abilities, and it just... You can also do some things for yourself if you want. If you want to play a bunch of tokens, you can make them all come into battlefield as a better creature. Then it has to be something that, you know, any non-legendary. So it can be crazy stuff. You know, Rampaging Baloth. You can have 15 Rampaging Baloth if you create 15 tokens. I don't know. You know, all kinds of fun stuff. It's just such a flexible card. It's so undervalued. It should not be $1. Negate, just an easy counterspell. Path of Exile, good removal. Protected Negotiator. This is an interesting counterspell. So a counters target spell unless the controller pays 1 for each creature you control. In a token deck, you should be able to play a lot of creatures. You should have a ton of creatures out, but you could be caught with your pants down if you have no creatures. And then this spell, you can kick it, and if it's kicked, you get a 1/1. So at the bare minimum, it should be countering for 1. So it's value if you have your commander out and you have enough creatures to counter something, but it's bad if you have no creatures out. Like after a board wipe, it does nothing unless you kick it, and then it's like if they don't pay 1. You know, it's sketchy. Sword to Plowshare, solid removal. Utter End, also solid removal. Void Rend, good removal that cannot be countered, which is nice, and it destroys any non-land permanent at instant speed. Whir of Invention, this is a tutor basically for any artifacts, and a lot of the artifacts in this deck are part of combos. So Whir of Invention, being able to do it at instant speed at the end of somebody's turn, is pretty valuable. But yeah, for 3 blue, instant speed, improvise, you can use artifacts to help cast it. You just tap the artifact, and it counts as a mana, basically. And search your library for an artifact card with mana value X or less, put on the battlefield, then shuffle. You're going to want to do this like right at the end of the person's turn before that you're about to go. So when they end their turn, just before you untap, you'll do this, and then hopefully play the other piece of the combo if you don't already have it out. But yeah, it's instant speed, so it's great. Arcane Signature is a mana rock. Ashnod's Altar is a sacrifice outlet for a lot of creatures. You'll be creating a lot of tokens, and there's ways to create tokens to then sacrifice to the Ashnod's Altar to then net more mana to then also create more tokens to then create more mana. Then there's a loop for that. So like if you have Thopter Foundry and Sword of the Meek with Ashnod's Altar, you can keep sacking the sword and then the creatures to create the mana to then sack the sword to then get a 1/1 from the Thopter Foundry to then sack the creature and then sack the sword, and then you can kind of repeat this loop, so you'll have infinite mana, infinite enters the battlefield, infinite life. Yeah, Ashnod's Altar, ladies and gentlemen, it's great. Mana Rock. Basalt Monolith is another way to do infinite mana. So with Basalt Monolith and Rings of Brighthearth, you can tap the 3 mana with the Basalt Monolith, use that same 3 mana to untap Basalt Monolith, and then with Rings of Brighthearth, it says you can pay 2 colorless mana to copy target activated ability that isn't a mana ability. And because Basalt Monolith, untapping it is the trigger that you're copying, it's not a mana ability. So you're paying 2 mana to copy the trigger, so then 2 triggers of Basalt Monolith go on the stack. You can then, in response to those triggers resolving, tap it for 3 mana, let the trigger resolve, tap it for 3 mana, and then let the trigger resolve, and then now you have a net mana, and you'll be able to go infinite mana just by doing that. Domain of Sin is just a mana rock. Idol of Oblivion is basically just here to draw cards. It's a 2 mana, cheap artifact. Just tap it, draw a card, activate only if you created a token this turn. You're playing a token deck, so you're going to probably be able to create tokens. You can sacrifice it and pay 8 mana and get a 10/10 Eldrazi, but you'll probably never do that. You can copy it with Rings of Brighthearth as well. Icecrown Scepter, this is where I was telling you about the dramatic reversal. As long as you have enough mana rocks to have more than 2 to untap, you'll have infinite mana. So Icecrown Scepter with dramatic reversal is a pretty standard combo. You could put Icecrown Scepter with any counter spell that's 2 or less, or the removals. But I would mainly just use it for Icecrown Scepter and dramatic reversal combo. Lightning Greaves to protect your commander. It gives it Shroud. Or other creatures as well, but mainly your commander. Look at Torques on Mana Rock. However, it does have the target non-land permanent becomes an artifact in addition to its other type. You could turn something into an artifact to help pay for Time Sieve if you don't have the Tevet combo. You can turn something into an artifact if somebody has Destroy All Artifacts. You can take something out with it. It's just got a lot of flexibility, and it's just a standard 2 mana, 1 Mana Rock. Pretty nice. Mimic Vat is just mainly here for whenever a non-token creature dies, any non-token creatures, including your opponents, you can exile that card, put it underneath Mimic Vat, and then you can pay 3 mana, create a token that's a copy of that card. So not only does it remove the ability from your opponent to reanimate whatever that is or get it back whatever way, but it also allows you to create tokens of that creature, use that creature for whatever, and also draw cards from Marneus. So just really good flexible thing here. Orzhov Signet, another Mana Rock. Mana Rock there. Rings of Brighthearth. This is the card that combos with a variety of things, but mainly with the Basalt Monolith. Shortkai is just a really good draw engine in this deck. For just one single mana, draw 2 cards and discard a card. You create a pilot. That pilot will then trigger Marneus to draw another card. So you're drawing 3 cards, discard 1 for 1 colorless. That's value. Skull Clamp, there's a decent number of 1/1 generators in Thopter Foundry and a various number of other ways. Skull Clamp, you can just kind of Skull Clamp things and kill it to draw some cards. Soul Rings Mana Rock. Sword of the Meek, this is one of the pieces with Thopter Foundry and the Ashnod's Altar. So basically, whenever a 1/1 creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may return Sword of the Meek from your graveyard to the battlefield, then attach it to that creature. This is the way so you can keep stacking the artifact to Thopter Foundry. You get the 1/1s from the Thopter Foundry, which then makes the sword come back from the graveyard after you just sacked it. And then, of course, all those 1/1s can then be used as mana to then pay for it. And there's your loop. Talisman is another Mana Rock. Thopter Foundry, this is the other part of the combo. So for 1 colorless, sacrifice a non-token artifact. Create a 1/1 blue Thopter artifact creature token with flying. You gain 1 life. So infinite life, infinite mana with Ashnod's Altar and Sword of the Meek. Fantastic. Infinite tokens. Another Mana Rock, Thought Vessel. Of course, you want no maximum hand size as much as you can. So it's on lands, it's on creatures, it's on Mana Rocks. Time Sieve, this is the way to take infinite turns with Tevet. Sacrifice 5 artifacts, take an extra turn after this one. Pretty simple. It doesn't have to be the things that Tevet makes. You can sacrifice Mana Rocks if it's late game and you don't need them, and you need a way to take an extra turn. Boom, there you go. Call to Bloodline, this is just a way to filter through your deck. So for 1 colorless, discard a card, and you create a 1/1 black vampire knight creature token with lifelink. Activate only once each turn. So if Marneus is on the field, you can pay a colorless, discard a card you don't want, and then you're going to draw a card because you're creating the token, and Marneus sees the token, you draw the card. So it's a way to kind of filter through, look for those combos, get rid of like extra lands and stuff and whatever. So you don't really want to ever do this without Marneus on the field, unless you need to. Court of Grace. Enchantment that when it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, you create a 1/1 spirit creature token with flying. If you're the Monarch, you create a 4/4 angel instead, with flying, of course. Pretty good. Monarch is strong. Divine Visitation, 5 mana for an enchantment. If 1 or more creature tokens would be created under your control, that many 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance are created instead. Who doesn't want larger tokens? So if you create 1/1s, you instead create 4/4s. Luminarch Ascension, this is another crazy one. If you play this early on and there's no interaction from your opponents, it just gets real out of hand. So at the beginning of each opponent's end step, if you didn't lose life this turn, you may put a quest counter on Luminarch Ascension. Then, if you have 4 or more counters on it, you can just pay 2 mana, 1 white and a colorless, and create a 4/4 angel. As many times as you want, no limitation. As long as it has those counters on it, you're good. It's pretty good. Reconnaissance Mission. This one is whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card, and it has cycling on it. This is relevant because you may not be able to deal combat damage to a player, but you need to draw a card. You can cycle it away, draw a card, hopefully get to an answer that you need. Academy Runes. This is a easy include for how many artifacts we have, and a lot of the artifacts are combo centric. So being able to kind of get back, if like one of our combo gets milled or if it gets destroyed and you have Academy Runes, you can put it back on top of your library, draw the card, replay it. Just a good reoccurrence or recursion land. Dual land, tri-land. This is a way to create a token. It is expensive at 4, but it is with Marneus on the field. It is draw a card and you get the 1/1, so it's not so bad. Dual land, tri-land, dual land, try-ish. Most likely it's try. Dual, basic. This can be removed. I am so used to playing a tribal deck because of last month that I auto-included this, but it taps for any color mana, but if it shares a creature type, you'll scry 1. But yeah, this should be removed for any other like a tri-land or something, like I don't know, even just a plains or something. Hey, look, plains, port down, prairie stream. These are all dual lands. No maximum hand size for Reliquary Tower. You need that. Vault of the Archangel. This is probably too expensive for this deck. It's probably not needed. You could probably just put any other land in it. But creatures you control gain Death Touch and Lifelink. I like the Lifelink part if you're winning with combat, which in a later game you can. Lifelink is nice. I like Lifelink. And that's the deck. So yeah, mainly you're just trying to go for the infinite combos with Ashnod Altar or Icecross Scepter, Sword of the Meek, Thopter Foundry, Time Sieve. Any of those. Basalt Monolith and Brings the Brighthearth. Those combos are really what you're aiming to do. Because Marneus is a colorless outlet, if you get infinite mana, you can draw your whole deck and then play all your mana rocks with the colorless and then convert that to colored mana, and it just becomes, a pretty a pretty combo-centric deck. And yeah, that's really what you want to do. I did win my first week of the J Controller Magic League, and it was pretty fun. It was through the infinite combo with Corpse Knight and making a bunch of tokens with infinite mana and draining all the opponents with the Corpse Knight damage. So it can win pretty easily. I would say, now that I've kind of like played through, these probably aren't necessary. You could probably just play like more tutors. Like for $20, you could just play Demonic Tutor probably. Another $10, you could just play Vampire Tutor. With $30, take away these $30, and plus like you probably don't need Adeline. You probably don't need Afara. You kind of just scrap all of these and just kind of like go super ham into those combos. It's probably more consistent if you want to be more CEDH ready and remove some of those things. But otherwise, it's still a pretty fun deck. If you're not trying to be super sweaty and whatnot, and if you're just trying to have some fun at the table, this probably is a more degenerate deck than most because of the combos in it. But otherwise, it's still a pretty fun deck, and hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, make sure to put them down below. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe if you've got any questions or anything. And share the video with your friends if they're interested in playing Marneus. Yeah, thanks for watching. See you guys around.